Hey everybody, my name is John Garcia and I am the designer of the Table Golf Association. I'm also the publisher of Meeple Mania Games, which right now the catalog only consists of the Table Golf Association. But we do want to change that. We are looking to help other board game designers launch their own games. And whenever possible, we are looking to also publish some games. So we're, trying to get deeper down into what that entails and obviously doing it as part of our own journey is why we understand this process. Now, anyone who attends the webinar will get the link to the PDF. I believe the people on the call so far already have the PDF. So today we're going to kind of go really into some of the detail of the blueprint, if you will, of what I did to launch and successfully fund my first game, the Table Golf Association, with the little cat with the little asterisks. As you read through the book, I did launch or try to launch a game in 2011, and we'll see the differences between that launch and the TGA. Just a quick background on me. I have over 20 years of marketing experience. That's really been my professional background. I've worked in music, I've worked in retail, I've worked in quite a few different segments, even technology. But overall, through it all, I am a board game geek at heart. My collection is about 300 games. I tell everybody who wants to start their own business, how long have you been in that business? Because there's nothing harder than starting a business. And if you start a business you know nothing about, it's that much harder. So I think just having the board games and really being part of the community for so long was very helpful. It was my inspiration, right? Anyone who loves board games probably has at least one idea for a game. I think we're all designers at heart. And I give a lot of credit to Pitch Car. Pitch Car is, most people know that game. It's a modular kind of racetrack game, and you're flicking little wooden discs as your car. Catan, everybody calls my game Golf Catan. As soon as they see it on the table, they bring up the game Catan because of the hexagon tiles and the kind of like the images on it. And then one other game I really give a lot of credit to is Small World. I have an expansion called Realms, and Realms has these little maps and how they come together. And that was a really influential into how the TGA went from the original version, which was puzzle pieces, to the finished version, which was hexagon pieces that just butt up against each other. So I'm just saying this to say, there's no wasted time playing games if you're going to design a game. I think the more games you play, the more, access you have or information you have to mechanics. I think the more well-rounded your game will be. And, every now and then you may have an inspiration that is really 100% completely new. But more than likely, you're probably building on something that's out there and kind of making it your own. So, for me as a board game guy, when people come over my house, I take out the game and I took out the TGA in its early version with wooden tiles that I created, right? Like we all do. And people liked it. Like we had a really good reaction. And a lot of us as we're developing games, when you get that feedback and it's negative, you kind of put it away. So this one was positive. I knew I had something, but one thing that I was very disappointed with, as you see here, is I used a wooden disc. So most dexterity games have some kind of wooden components, right? A little wooden disc that you flick. And that was the case with mine. And that wooden disc was terrible. It would hit edges, it would bounce off the table, and it really just wasn't what the game needed. And so I kind of put the game away. Even though I had good early responses, I wasn't happy with the wooden disc. And then one day at the office, I came across a mini shuffleboard game, and it had this beautiful piece right here. It was obviously this is our own version of it, which is something that I came up with after the Kickstarter. We actually decided to design our own TGA version. It was the only thing in the game. It was the only component that was generic. And I said, you know what? We really need to do it custom. And it was a home run without a doubt. I think it's the best thing in the game because when you flick the TJ ball, you really take it from, just a flicking game to a game of skill. It really is a dexterity game of skill. And it's just like golf in that it's easy to play, but it's very difficult to master. So it's kind of like the little backstory of the TGA. And one of the bonuses was that my son Gavin, who's 20 now, really helped me to develop it. He came up with some of the pro player cards and the graphics. And this is like we were just talking a labor of love. And if you can include a family member or a close friend, somebody else to kind of go into that journey with you, I really do recommend it. So again, welcome everybody to the Kickstart My Game webinar. It's part of my Kickstarter coach website, and I offer one-on-one coaching. Today's webinar, we're going to be going over the PDF that everyone will get. It's called Kickstart My Game. It's about a 60-page guide or blueprint of what I did and to fund the TGA, and that's what we're going to start here today. Really quick, because I do want to get into the nuts and bolts of it, and I know that's what you guys want as well. But I do want to say something about the truth about Kickstarter, and not every Kickstarter project needs your pledge, right? You know, if you're a board game person, if you're in the community, you've probably pledged for a game or two, and if you've been on Kickstarter, you've seen that there's a lot of major market games, like games that are from, just big companies, established companies, and established board game designers that my thing is they're going to make that game regardless of your pledge. And they've turned Kickstarter a little bit into a pre-order market. And rightly so, I think backers are feeling a little bit jaded. They feel like they're being taken advantage of to a certain extent. And more than anything else, it's making it difficult for first-time board game designers, small publishers, small, board game designers to get the attention they need and the funds that they actually really do need to make the games. So we're going to just talk about some of the stats really quick. I did try to launch a game 12 years ago, and it was called it's a little card game. It was a boxing game, and I have it here on the next page so you can take a look at it. But as you can see here, before I get into how to do it the right way, is how to do it the wrong way. I thought I had a great game, a cool game, and I put it on Kickstarter. I did a tiny little video playing it myself, and I think I was looking to raise $7,000. And I raised a total of $45 with 6 backers. So yeah, it didn't work out too well. Here's the game. It's a boxing game. There's basically 2 coasters. This is the punch coaster. The other player gets the defense coaster. And when you put one on top of the other, you see the results right in the die cut. So pretty cool mechanic, simple. We call it like a game while you wait. So you can take it to a restaurant. You're waiting for your order. You're playing a little game. But the point was this, even though the game was good, and even though the game probably could raise $7,000, if you don't do everything that I'm about to explain here, you have a very little chance to succeed. And I'll give you some examples why. On Kickstarter, let me put it into some perspective. Successful campaigns on crowdfunding are not easy as they look. For essentially a one-man operation like me, literally the odds of success of that I was able to do are less than 1%. Less than 1% of first-time board game designers raise over 100,000. We actually reached 200,000. So let's start over here. Competition. Only 48% of Kickstarter projects meet their funding goals, and the large percentage are by established designers or companies. So you're already, up against the odds, right? Less than half of the projects fund. Now I'll jump over here. And of those that fund, 42%, almost half. So less than half fund. And of the ones that do, they only raise between $1,000 and $10,000. So, I just got off a call and someone was asking me, what's the average, that you can expect to raise on Kickstarter? And it's, there is some truth behind it. There is some math behind it. Well, the average just about $1,000 to $10,000. It's not probably what most people expect to raise when they put a game on Kickstarter. And the potential, less than 8% of Kickstarter projects exceed 100,000 in funding, and that's overall. So when it comes to the games themselves, it's a little bit tougher. I do want to show you that there's been about 57,000 games in over 13 years, and only 2,688 have raised $100,000. And again, they don't show you which ones are established, but you do see a lot of them that are established. So here's where your 41% lies. Interestingly enough, there's another little bump here. 7,000 games were between 20,000 and 100,000. So actually less raised between 10 and 20,000. So this is the peak. And then there's another little bump over here. So that is some good news. But overall, you see the difficulty and just how difficult it is in just the game industry. Here's the thing. Kickstarter is not going to change to cater to little guys like us, right? They make 5% commissions on all pledges. So they're not going to turn away a game that's going to raise $12 million, even if it's from a successful, publisher. The silver lining that I want to share is if your project reaches to 20%, 78% of those projects that get to 20% funding actually go on to get funded. So that's kind of like the silver lining. I wouldn't say it's like a magic bullet getting to 20%, because here's the thing. If your campaign gets to 20% on day 29 out of 30, you're probably not going to raise the other 80% in that last day, right? But if you do get to 20% on day one, you're on the right path and you have a very good chance of getting funded. 78% of them do get funded. So this is a snapshot of my game. And it was crazy. On the first day, we raised $36,000 on the first day on a goal of $10,000. And if you look at the curve, we went up about $5,000 on average every day. And in the last week, we had a huge bump. And I attribute a lot of that to Tom at Dice Tower, who reviewed it on the crowd surfing show that he does. It was a tremendous impact that he made at the end of the campaign, and it wasn't anything we planned. It was totally just a blessing and a little bit of luck. So one thing that I will stress, and that is part of my coaching, is part of anyone that does any kind of help with Kickstarter, is how important it is to fund on day one. And you're like, well, I just want to fund the game, right? I don't care if it funds on day one or day 30. True, you do just care about funding the game. But the way Kickstarter works, if you fund on day one, you get on algorithms and you get exposure and you get validation that you have something. So the quicker you fund, the more likely when somebody visits your page that they will also back it. So if someone comes to your page and they see two backers on day two, they're like, something's wrong with this. There's a reason why people aren't backing it, right? So it's a psychological effect that it has on backers. Super backers are expecting new games on Tuesdays. So on Tuesdays, for whatever reason, in a lot of industries, Tuesdays is like the day to break the game. Or, in music, new albums come out on Tuesday. It's just a lot of times things release on a Tuesday for whatever reason. So super backers are there on Tuesday, early in the morning, ready to see what's going on. And they're going to focus on the things that are on fire, that are hot. And if your game is not one of them, it will quickly get buried in the 400 to 500 games that launch every month on Kickstarter. So I know I have a few guys on the call. Does anyone have any questions or comments, so far on anything that I've, so far it's been kind of just a backstory, but do you have any questions about the day one funding or things like that? Just gonna take a quick sip.
A little one, John. So that obviously you got to 36,000 on day one. Do you reckon that was almost like 99% just stuff you did, and then beyond that started to be Kickstarter, other stuff, or do you think even
Yes.
day one you were sort of rewarded for like what what
No,
what percentage of that 36 was down to like totally what you put in and people you knew almost or
it was
people
it
you
was about
expected to back?
it was about 80% of what I did. And the reason why I know that number is because you could match emails. So I'll go into how important it is, really what you're doing is building up an email database, and how important, because really that's the only thing you own at the end of the day is that email address. You don't own the Facebook page, the TikTok, any of the other stuff. And I had people already kind of annoyed, if you will, that I hadn't launched yet. They were like, "A launch already," because they were watching all these videos of me on social media playing the game, that they wanted to play it so bad. Even on Discord, we were doing stuff, and really the anticipation was there. There's no doubt that the anticipation was there. I do want to say this: my game is a simple dexterity game. Now, dexterity can almost be a curse word in the industry. Like that you either love it or hate it. And a lot of people that are call themselves like strategy gamers and stuff, there's this weird thing, not that they have an automatic no or say automatically no to dexterity, but it's like a genre that, heck, after I do everything else, then maybe I'll give dexterity a try, right? It just has that thing. But my game, what's great about it is you can quickly see exactly what you're getting and you could quickly see exactly how to play it. So I think that worked to my benefit by having a game that I'm able to explain quickly how to play it, how to do it. And I think it engaged people right away. But yeah, Glenn, there's no doubt that all of this work that we're going to talk about here in this webinar really led to a powerful boost on day one. It was well beyond my expectations. I'm not going to say I expected quite that. And I do believe that it got on people's radars, like I just said, because it was spiking so quickly. Super backers looked at it and said, I got to be a part of this. But yeah, I would say about 80% of it, especially, okay, in 1 hour, we funded in 1 hour. We were over $10,000 in 1 hour. And that was literally all of the work that I put in. Like those people were my people. Those people were in my list. Those people were in my community. They were in my database. And so in the first hour, that first 10,000 was really attributed to the efforts we did. But then the rest really just snowballs. It really does snowball in Kickstarter. So thank you for that question. Eric, anything there? We're good. So how we did it, right? We're going to talk a lot about it. First things first, I just got off a call with a gentleman and he didn't even have a game yet, right? He has an idea, which is good. As far as starting to do some research, I don't think it's ever too early to do some research. Um, Eric, I believe, you mentioned you're still kind of really getting through just development. So
Correct.
it's never too early to, be a part of the community and understand what you're getting yourself into. Um, but first things first, you have to have a working prototype that is completely, I mean, completely manufactured. This is our next edition of Maple Beach, and this is already the second prototype I have of it. And I do want to share this. We're working on a whole new game called Spaceborne, and this is also the second prototype that I have of it. And I don't mean you need to spend a ton of money, but you could do a lot before you order the prototype. But in today's Kickstarter world, there's no way that you're going to get away with a homemade version of the game. It's just not going to happen. It's a much more professional platform, and backers they've come to expect it. So the Kickstarter landscape has changed because of all the big companies and all of the glossy, shiny marketing campaigns that are out there. So we have to compete with them. We have to look as good as that company that already has millions of dollars and maybe millions of customers. So unfortunately, again, the days of Kickstarter just backing something that's very, ground roots and just kind of just a sketch or whatever, because that used to happen. Those days are way gone. You have to invest some money. And, also on another call, they asked me on average how much you have to spend on the game. Well, I had a call with the guy that spent $300,000 and he raised 50,000, which was his funding goal, and he reached it on the last day. So was that a success? He funded for 50,000, that was his goal, but he spent 300,000 developing the game. So that my point is I did not spend nowhere near that much. I spent a lot less, but there are hard costs, not only in making the prototype and the design and things like that, but also in getting it to reviewers, right? You need to get the game, I would say I always recommend at least 20 copies, but somewhere between 10 and 20 copies. And those are expensive because that short run is expensive. I just ordered 20 copies of Meeple Mania and it cost me $1,600. So just to give you an idea. Because when you order a small run of a full game with a lot of components, it's expensive. So that plus your Facebook advertising. So we'll talk about that. Average of about $20 per day minimum. Plus some reviewers charge you to review their games. So, I would say on the lowest end, somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. You should be looking to invest somewhere between that amount to launch a game on Kickstarter, minimum. You don't need to go too much higher to really set yourself up for success. Other expenses would come in things like just advanced components or things like that, but not necessary. So I'm not trying to talk you guys out of it before we even get started, but there are some costs that are going to be involved. I did not have a Kickstarter coach when I started, but funny enough, I have my own coach right now too. So I have a weekly call with a board game designer in the UK that I admire, that I appreciate, that is successful. And I wish I had this when I was launching. I wish I had a one-on-one, opportunity with someone, but obviously not too many people make themselves available and they're busy, and that's fine. But finding the right resource is worth the money. I also paid for some resources, let's say out there, I'm not going to name them, but I'll give you a price. I paid $3,000 for a Kickstarter, uh, kind of program, and I learned some things, but it was not what what I'm explaining here, and it was not what I really needed at the end of the day. So you got to be careful because there are a lot of stuff out there. So all those costs involved, you're going to come up with a price, right? You're going to come up with a number you need to raise. Well, my math was this: my factory needed 500. I had to order 500. Minimum order quantity was 500 copies. The price was basically $20. So I just did 500 times 20. And I said, okay, I need $10,000. And I'm way off on that number because when you do that, you're not even adding the price of the shipping from China. Now, COVID was over, but not quite. It was very difficult to get a pallet. It was very difficult to get your stuff on a ship. I mean, things were going crazy at that time, and costs went way up. Shipping costs went way up. So my quote for shipping ended up from, I think, an initial quote of about 2,500 to actually $5,000. So if I funded at 10,000, I'd have to go out of pocket 5,000 minimum just to get the game over here. And obviously that doesn't cover all of my other costs, right? That I did to get to that point. But just hard costs based on 500 games, I really needed $15,000. So what that is called a landed price. You really need to understand what your landed price is because from there is where you start working your markup. So if my landed price was $29, what do I need to sell it for to a distributor that's going to also market it up to maybe a wholesaler or a retailer? So here's this example. I start with 29. If I wanted to get 25% margin on that, I'm going to sell it for $36.25. The distributor is going to sell it to the wholesaler retailer for 45 because they're going to mark it up another 25%. And then the retailer is going to mark it up 100%. So now my game sells for $90. So when you do that, you right away it becomes real, right? It becomes real. It's a real number. And then you have to ask yourself, do you think the consumer is willing to pay that amount for the game that you're offering? Right? So, Eric, I mean, the only way to do that is to know what your components are, right? You need to get a quote on the game. That's why you need a real game before you launch on Kickstarter. You need to know every component from the box to the rule book to every component, exactly what it's going to cost you at $500 so that you can do this math and then figure out if you're okay with that retail price. Because if it's not, if it's too high, you have to probably do something to bring the cost of the game down. It could be what I did, original version of the TGA was made out of wood, and that's why we got to this number. And so what we did on the second version of the TGA is we made the tiles out of cardboard, and it dropped the price down by $30. So now we have a game like we call the wooden one, the Pro Edition, and it's still available and people still love it. Excuse me. But if you want something more economical, we just basically made it in cardboard. So it's something for you to consider when you're developing your game. You could have premium pieces, you could have quality things, but you got to be aware that every little thing brings the price up. And I'll tell you this, it, I think pricing it as competitively as possible is really important. You need to make money, guys. You can't price it to lose money because you're doing everyone a disservice because you know why? You're going to go out of business and people who love your game and want your game won't be able to get it anymore. So this math right off the bat is super important. And it's something that most designers, and I'm not being stereotypical, but anybody just starting a new business, they don't have a good grasp of this. And so you kind of fail even before you start. So we love making games, we love people playing games, but there's a business side, and it's super important that you understand, what your landed price is. Any questions there? Because that is, painting you guys between the between the eyeballs with that one.
No, I mean, so I did find the retailer markup to be a bit of a shock, though. You anticipate that that's 100% markup, meaning the game is, if it's a $30 game, it's a $15 pre MSRP.
Generally, the retailer will double the price from what they pay for it because, obviously you have to understand the retailer pays rent, they pay employees, they have a ton of overhead that someone who sells directly on the internet doesn't have. So a brick and mortar, business needs to create that margin, or else they they're not really set up to kind of stay in business either, because not every game on their shelf sells, right? So the one that does has to cover for the two or three that don't as well. So they stock, obviously, they want to sell the games that are selling, but they also have some games that aren't moving as quickly, or they don't move at all sometimes, and they'll return them. So during that part, some games are actually funding everything else. That's why you have bestsellers, and you need that bestseller in the store. So yeah, Eric, unfortunately, that's how you really have to. Now, some will do less, like some margins go from as little as 40%, but that's because they buy a lot of volume, and that's also because they do expect it to move. Once you get to that point, it's a little different. So we talk a little bit here about your profit. Other things, other fees you have to understand is the credit card takes 3%, and that adds up, and Kickstarter takes 5%, which is why you never add shipping on the front end of the pledge. Meaning Kickstarter they still try to get you to create your campaign and include shipping in the pledge cost. So if your game costs 30, right, Eric, they're trying to make you pledge at 45, which includes shipping. You may think that sounds good for the backer, if it includes shipping, but here's the problem. Kickstarter is taking 5% of all the money. So that means they're taking 5% out of your shipping dollars as well. So never charge for shipping in the pledge. Always charge it in the back end in the pledge manager. Most campaigns do that now, but you got to be careful because Kickstarter sets you up to charge it in the front. It's right there for you to kind of set it up in the front. So never do that. So this is really just talking more about the profit margin, but I really kind of explained it already. Some of the other hidden costs that a lot of people don't understand is pick and pack. When you buy a game, Eric, and you see $14 in shipping, you go, what the heck? Why does it cost $14 to ship this piece of cardboard, right? Well, the factory's charging you, the warehouse is charging you for a storage fee, sometimes $400 a month. They're also charging you for every game that they pick and they pack. So they pick the parts, they pick if it's a base game and an expansion and this and that and the other. Sometimes they charge per piece that they pack. Sometimes it's just a flat rate. So it could range from $1 to $3. That's a lot of money. All of a sudden, you didn't account for that, and now you're almost breaking even. And that's what happens. These are the hidden costs that kill people. So these are the conversations you need to have with your fulfillment company and be very clear of the cost so that you can build it in. When backers or people who buy things don't understand why shipping costs are what they are, you could blame one person. Do you know who that is? Amazon. With Amazon Prime and free and so-called free shipping, it's really tough. Because you have to play that game, to a certain degree, and people have been expecting. Now on Kickstarter, it's different. People know that they're going to pay shipping, but man, they pay it and they're upset about it. Like there's no way to pay it and kind of be happy about it. But now that you're on the other end of it, you understand that these aren't costs that you're keeping money on or making a profit on at all. You need to be aware of them so that you can still make a profit at the end of the day. So, super important. Those are just the numbers part. The pre-launch, I call it kind of steps to zero. So Glenn, this is part of like building up the momentum. I like this analogy with the rocket. I think I say it here, but let's say 80-90% of a rocket's fuel is actually burned right at liftoff, right? It won't get off the ground if it doesn't use that much inertia and that much energy. And it's really the same thing with your Kickstarter campaign. You really need it to launch. Oh, you don't want to just start it. You don't want to just, right, begin the campaign. You want to launch it. You want it to go from zero to funded in day one. That's a launch. So that's the difference between what maybe, an average person will do or someone who doesn't know exactly what this takes would do to someone who does. So I call it steps to zero. and marketing, which is, again, I have 20 plus years in marketing. It's kind of like my favorite word. I have a little funny thing here. Marketing is to let everyone who needs to know about your game so that you can get rich. That's a made up definition of marketing. But it's so I put here, it's not the accepted definition, but it's what needs to happen in order for your project to be a success. So what does that entail? It entails one of the most important things is a landing page. So this is separate from Kickstarter's landing page. This is your own branded landing page, your website, right? And your landing page where people see your video, see your testimonials, see your, every little, not every little detail, but most importantly, what you're doing on that landing page is collecting an email address. That's what the landing page is for. Hey, be part of this journey, join my email, and ABC, you're going to get a discount. You're going to get a special gift. You're going to, whatever it is, that's your tactic to get someone to convert. And we'll talk more about that later. The campaign, it consists of all the strategy, what you're going to say and do, and then the tactics is how you're going to do them to get people onto your landing page. Generally, it will include social media posts, paid ads, reviews, possibly media or press coverage. And then the goal, beyond telling the world so you can get rich, you should set a goal of 1,000 email subscribers. So why 1,000? Like, did I pick that out of the air? No. The reason 1,000 is because you got to kind of factor that on the low end, 10% of your email subscribers will convert to backers. So here's a real cool thing, Eric. Take 1,000, 10% is 100. If 100 times a certain number, what is that number? If 100 times, let's say the average pledge is $30, that's $3,000. Will that get you funded? Right? And if not, what are some of the other things that you can do to mitigate that? Can you add add-ons? Can you add some expansions? Can you bring the average price of the pledge up? You know what the average price of my pledge was in the first campaign? It was $142. The average pledge was $142. And I tell you that initially I started with just like two options. And then we added a driving range expansion literally right before we launched, and we added a European expansion. I didn't even have those things, but I knew I had to drive the average pledge up. So expansions are important. Rewarding backers is important. And so we'll get to a little bit more of that. But these are kind of the first three basics, obviously your marketing, your landing page, and then your overall campaign. And I say 1,000, and here's again a little bit about the math on the emails. If you only had 10%, 100 backers, how close to the goal, or can you get to the goal if only they convert? And then obviously, how do you fill the gap? All right, we're good there. We're gonna get into more of the details. So marketing, here are your digital assets, right? You need your website. I just got off a call and the guy was asking me, even after the campaign, do you still need to post on social media? And I was like, well, if you back a game and the day after it funds, you don't hear from them again, how would you feel, right? You want to build the community. You want to continue to be involved. So I just posted a video today playing, Pebble Beach #7, so I'm still keeping all of that going. So you do need Facebook. You do need Instagram. You do need YouTube. I wholeheartedly believe you need TikTok. And Discord is a bit of an option. You could use, tabletop games, but something that you can do some kind of, community. For my game, it's a little harder because it's a dexterity game. So I can't just put things online and people play it because it's a dexterity. They have to have the dexterity part of it, the ball. But you do want all of these communities. And Eric, I'll say this. It's never too early. If you really believe in this game and you really believe you're going to make it, it's never too early to start on social media. Because if you could show people the journey from the beginning, I'll give you a great example. Galactic Cruise with TK. He's going to launch with 6,000 people following his Kickstarter page. And he started 3 years ago. And he literally told me from day one, he was sharing. He was sharing, this is what I'm sketching, this is what I'm working on. And you know what? No one's going to care at that point. So don't expect it to be like, okay, this is working. No, it's not going to work, but it has compounding effects. So what happens is as it grows, then people go back to the early posts and they start consuming that as well. So you'll see they'll like 20 of your things. Like when somebody likes my page, they like 20 things because they just came across it. But now they're like, oh, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool. And they end up like, clicking like or hearts or whatever on all the stuff. So my advice to everyone is start as soon as you believe that you're going to go through with this, build the page and start sharing your journey. That's what social media is about. Email, I use MailChimp. Landing pages, I use ClickFunnels. You don't have to. ClickFunnels is very expensive. It's about $200 a month, but it's very intensive. There's a lot of tools there, but you don't need it at all. I'm not using it anymore on the new one. Stripe, you have to use. Kickstarter forces you to use Stripe. Canva is an absolutely awesome graphic design program that I use. You can source on Fiverr. There's other websites where you can source talent. Wondershare is a great simple program for video editing, so you can use that as well. Canva also now has video editing, which is really good. So those are the must-haves right there. You really don't need a technical skill with GoDaddy. I don't know if you have website experience, but they have templates. It's pretty easy to build. There's really no excuse to not have a website landing page, and you don't need a web developer at this point. You just need a really good landing page. Um, and there's nothing wrong. There's an acronym called CASE, CACE, copy and steal everything. And Glenn, you mentioned already something about the Facebook ads. That's what it's all about. You want to copy and steal whatever's successful, and then obviously you customize it to yours. So there's a lot of good landing pages out there. There's nothing wrong with taking a good landing page that you like and copying that format and then making it your own. All right. Even as a marketer of 20 years, I still look at the best examples and want to, emulate them. So this is just something I just already mentioned, about social media, be part of the community. Board Game Geek. Are you guys on Board Game Geek at all? I mean, I
Yeah,
wish I did more on
very
Board
much so.
Game
Yeah.
Geek. Yeah, I was a little afraid to be honest, of Board Game Geek because I felt like, this is like the heavy duty gamers, right? These are the guys that like live this stuff 100%. Are they going to make me look stupid or dumb or, like, is my game that's dexterity, going to be kind of frowned upon, right? So I was a little bit worried and I didn't do a lot on Board Game Geek. You know what? I regret it because they were great with my game. I got a lot of love. I got a lot of great reviews. I got a really good rating. And I think I just hurt myself by not going into that space early enough. So that
Can I
I guess you
can
can
I
add
add in
that to
there,
the
John? Like, as soon as I put finger golf onto Board Game Geek,
yeah.
it was the first thing that arrives on a Google search. So Board Game Geek's search algorithms are unbelievable. Like, finger golf's not a thing on Board Game Geek at all, but it shows
No.
up as like and the same with Badly Set. Whatever they do, your it becomes, if you Google search your game, Board Game Geeks does something clever that it will be searchable and it will go to your game rather than some other thing.
Yeah, that's a great point, Glenn. And well, they do a lot of clever things, but more than anything else, they're a gigantic website with a ton of credibility from Google. So Google uses it, they're a trusted site, and they have so many users and content is always renewing. So they do always show up at the very top of search results. So that's a great point. It's a great way to jump up quickly while you're building your own assets. So yeah. Um, Dice Tower, we'll talk more about it because they were really great with my game. And Facebook, Facebook, I'll say it without holding too much back, is terrible. Facebook, you build I have a community of 1,000 followers on TGA, and I post something, and you know how many people see it? 5. It reaches 5 people. Like, why am I building such a big community if only 5 people that have chosen to follow me see it? Facebook can't answer that. Well, I know why. I mean, it's probably, if every page delivered a post to every follower, maybe it would overwhelm them as far as server issues and things like that. I don't know. The bottom line is it's a really sore, you know, part for me that I've worked so hard to build up this community and then such a small amount sees it. And now here is the flip side of that. Facebook is awesome, awesome at advertising and reaching your targeted audience. They know who you are, they know what you like, and they know how to get it in front of you. So it's really that necessary evil again with Facebook. Instagram, you get a lot more love on Instagram. You're going to go a lot more viral. And YouTube, I just posted something a couple days ago that has 12,000 views. No, it's up to 14,000 views. I think, Glenn, you mentioned some videos you have. I have one that's nearly 1 million views as well on TikTok. Like that would never happen on Instagram or Facebook. Never. It wouldn't even just come close. So whatever your opinion is of TikTok, I know other conversations have come around with privacy issues. Listen, if you're using it for business, you have to use it. That's it. That's my stance on it. If you don't want to, that's fine. But TikTok, one of the reviews on TikTok, I directly turned into 90 sales for my game in one weekend. It was easy to correlate that video and the 90 sales that I had that weekend. So start building it, embrace it. You're going to appreciate that you did it as early as possible. Um, the two main purposes of social, obviously exposure, um, and eventually it does lead to e-commerce. So I sell quite a bit on my website directly. And the best part of selling directly is you make all the money, right? When you sell directly, there's no distributor, there's no wholesaler, there's no retailer. You are the retailer. So all of that markup that we spoke about before is all yours. When I sell a $90 game on directly on my website, I make about $60. That's huge. That's a tremendous, that helps me do other things. So social media will become an engine for you for e-commerce later on. Now, again, like I said, your emails are the most important thing that you're going to own going into the campaign. So anything you can do to build your email subscriber base is the most important work you could do leading up to the launch. That's pretty much like it in a nutshell. As you build a list with emails, they will automatically be added to. Oh, so MailChimp, has basically it's integrated with a lot of platforms. So from your landing page, you could integrate it so that the emails are automatically added to your MailChimp account. And that's really important because it saves you time. Um, and I'll show you some of the things that we did. Our email went from 0 to over 3,000 names, and now we're at about 5,000 names. And it's just so valuable. It's so important. The landing page I explained a little bit. It's to convert visitors from passive to active. And again, it's really about collecting that email address. I use ClickFunnels, but you don't need to. You could just use a basic page, through GoDaddy and just have a form fill out. There's another website called Wufoo, WUFOO, and it's just for building forms, and it's a great site. Your credit card processing, I mentioned Stripe, and then I do want to talk just a second about return on ad spend, which is really important because anyone who attends this webinar, I'm going to send you a calculator on how to basically figure out your return on ad spend, because you're basically, you're deducting your cost of goods and your advertising, and then that number divided by the cost of the cost divided by the retail price of the game gives you your basically the number that you need to get on a return to break even. So meaning for every dollar I spend, I need to earn back at least $2 in my example just to break even. Now, in my campaign, every dollar I was spending was returning $3. So I was going well ahead of my break-even point. Just for perspective, during the campaign, I worked with BackerKit. So if you're familiar with BackerKit, they are super advanced company in crowdfunding, and they usually help you with your pledge manager. But something that they also do, and I'll never forget the conversation. He goes, John, we don't start the fire. You start the fire, but we put the gasoline on the fire and we make it explode. So by that, he meant they actually spend their money on advertising, and they track everything carefully so that they make sure that they stay ahead of this $2 number. So if they're spending $1 and their return is less than $2, then they literally stop and fix it, and they make sure that they go back over that $2 return. So for perspective, we spent about $15,000 in the first campaign, and we made $45,000 from those ads. So we tripled our money. We spent 15,000 and we got 45,000 back. So if I told you, Eric, for every dollar I'll give you back 3, would you do it?
Sounds like a winner to me.
Yeah, exactly. So it seems scary to some people, but the more money I was putting in, I was tripling. I was earning, 66%. So there was no saying no to that. And as long as the performance maintained there, it was a win. It was an absolute win. So ROAS is really, really important. Here's kind of like that formula. I'll send you the calculator, but you can do it yourself. You want to see your average pledge price, and this you're guessing at it. So this is a guesstimate because you don't know. But what you do is you take obviously what you're selling. Do you have an add-on? Do you have like this premium price point? So we had it from as little as, not as little, but $75 was the base game. And we had an all-in pledge of $400. We only had 27 people at that $400, but that came up to like $11,000 that they ended up, that it ended up generating, which brought my average pledge up. So I told you my average pledge was $142. So I was way above this. And then I took into account more or less what my manufacturing was, my shipping was, my stripe fees. And then this is my margin. So you divide this 105 by this. I needed to make back at least $1.44 for every dollar I spent. And I was making $3 for every dollar I spent. This is a little bit advanced, but I'll tell you guys, the better you understand this, the better you'll be, in the long run. Because you're going to work probably initially with somebody who's going to help you with ads. And if you do it on your own, you at least have an idea of, what you need to expect to see to make sure you're profitable. So I know I'm going to ask, but does that make sense? Or, because I know there's probably a whole class on just this that I could do.
Yeah, the addition needs to add up. Sounds like a
Yeah.
no-brainer. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've been harping on numbers for most of this. We're going to get into the tactics, quickly, but it's a business, guys. Like we all want to make games and we all want, people to play them. But if you don't do this right, you're gonna get one and done, like like the college basketball, 1 year and you're out. I'm on my third campaign now, and it's still tough. It's still very tight. Let's see, backer kit update. Let's see. Yeah, so here you see, so value of ads was actually 38,000 on 15,000. This was an earlier snippet. I think it ended up being 45,000 when we were all said and done. But they send you, Backer Kit sends you these updates as your campaign is going. So you're always aware of, how you're doing and how that money is turning into pledges. All right, so targeting your audience. This is the part I think a lot of people appreciate, Facebook for. With Facebook, they're very good, like I said, at getting in front of the right people. And I used a couple of different ad types to do that. And I'm going to show you some of them here. So this is the one that I know, Glenn, you referenced, and I loved and was super, super impactful. And I think this is worth its weight in gold, as far as a tactic. But Facebook has a type of ad, and it's called a lead generation ad, right? It's a very specific type of ad. And with these ads, the conversion happens right on Facebook. So they're not leaving Facebook to give you this information. As soon as they click on this, I was asking them 3 questions. I had a cool little picture, get ready for the TGA. Finally, if you can't get to the course, you can bring the course to you, right? Some kind of little catchy little line there. So, first question, do you love golf? Yes or no? Simple, right? Glenn, your example was similar because you have a golf game. Do you love golf? Now, my second question was, do you play board games? Yes, no. And the third option was only when I'm forced to, LOL, right? So a little humor and never hurts. And then the last one was, have you ever backed a Kickstarter? Yes, no. And I didn't include it here, but the third option said, what is Kickstarter? So even though Facebook, it has a lot of great algorithms and helps you get in front of the right people, this ad made it foolproof that I was getting in front of the right people. This ad made me 100% sure that I'm reaching the right person, because I can't tell you how many responses I got where it said, yes, I love golf. Yes, I love board games. Yes, I backed the Kickstarter. I mean, that's a home run. I know that person is exactly the person I need to see my ad and to be part of my campaign. Every now and then I got a yes, yes, no. So they didn't know what Kickstarter was. And now I know I need to coach that person on Kickstarter. Because Kickstarter, right, you have to set up an account, you have to have an account to pledge, and you have to understand that if the game doesn't fund, they don't charge your credit card. So there is some education, if you will. And trust me, I had a lot of people that were not, necessarily not new to Kickstarter, but they hadn't really pledged. So there was that we did bring a lot of people into the fold. So, like I said here, a large majority were yes, yes, and yes, meaning they love golf, they played games, and previously back to Kickstarter. Eric, what's the idea of your game or theme, or maybe just the genre?
Classic board game. So party style though.
Party style. So yeah, so I mean, maybe like if it's music or if it's whatever it is, you the theme of the game. So do you love and then the theme, and then do you love party games? Yes, and have you back to Kickstarter. So maybe you're not going to ask them obviously if you love golf, but you want to try to find that theme that fits, that the party game is about, and kind of ask it there. And then do you love party games, and then have you back to Kickstarter. So that's one of your type of ad sets. You could see here it
John, can
turns.
I just go back to
Sure.
that one because that one, as I said to you before, that one like that sort of stuck out to me. But so that's just an option when you're doing a Facebook ad, is that you can ask a series of questions to sort of qualify your leads.
Yeah, and there's basically a form, and so you could automatically default it to name and email, right? So the person's name and email are already part of this. Once they hit yes, yes, and yes, and hit send, or basically get through to the end, it'll say thank you, and now you could have a link there to your website from that thank you. So they could go from there to your website, but the cool thing is their name and email is automatically captured. So in Facebook, you have a dashboard and you'll have a thing called a lead center. And you go to that lead center and you'll see the person's name and email address in there. Now, you could ask for more things, but I wouldn't recommend it. You could ask for like phone number and stuff, and they could have to fill it in. But if you just ask for name and email, you're going to collect that. And they don't have to go to your landing page and fill that in. They don't have to go anywhere else. They just basically interacted with your ad. As long as they get through the ad and to that thank you page, you'll have their name and their email. I was spending $20 a day and I was getting 20 leads per day, $1 per lead. And like you see here, I got up to 791 leads from this campaign.
That's very good.
It was awesome. I would love to open the dashboard and just see 18, 19, 20. It was like so cool. Some days we even more than 20. So it ended up being nearly 800 leads with $1,600 invested. So overall, it ended up with $2 per lead at the end of the campaign. That's think about it. You're paying two, average pledge $142, right? So definitely a winner. Um, the other one was the board game giveaway. There are some really good sites out there that already have audiences. You could reach out to them and they run the giveaway. We did that as well. And it worked out well. We got a few hundred from them, and then we did it on our own as well. And these people would go to our landing page. The only thing with giveaways, don't do it too close to the launch because people would rather win it, right, than pledge for the game. So you definitely don't want to run anything like this during your campaign. This is all, ahead of the campaign, and probably ended a week before, I would say. Don't end it too close to the launch of your campaign. Oh, sorry. You are going to get this PDF, but as you can see, the cost per click is only $1. Oh, it's actually 14 cents. And it was seen 65,000 times. It generated 2,000 visitors to the site. This is the building that momentum, Glenn. This is how you get 100 people to pledge on day one and fund on day one, because this kind of activity is being generated. And that's why Facebook, although organically they're terrible, if you pay them, it delivers. And that's the difference. And then these ads were just going to the landing page. So I said, so this was a tactic that I used and I'm not using now, but you could become a VIP. It's a little bit of an advanced tactic. And you're basically asking for the person for $1 to secure a discount on the day one of the pledge. It's a tricky little thing. You could alienate people with this, and not everybody likes it. Like, why is he a VIP and I'm not? You got to be careful with this. It's becoming less effective, if you will. This was a tactic I used 2 years ago. but now it's been overdone. Like you see it all the time, and it's people are getting a little, uh, not happy with it to keep it kosher. Um, they're pissed off. So it did work at the time. I don't know if I, in my coaching practice right now, I would use it unless there are places where it fits. But basically, it resulted in 937 clicks. I think we ended up getting about, I think I said 400 people. So I thought I had it here, but I had about 400 people pay $1. And the one good thing about this is if you pay $1, it seems like nothing, but you're vested. At that point, you're really paying attention to the campaign. And I think out of the 400, we did have about 200 people eventually convert into backers, not all of them on day one. So it is a tactic. I just saw it with another campaign, so people are still using it. But I'm going to do something a little different, and I'm only giving that to my coaching clients. So I'm not going to give it up here on the webinar. But there's a way to do this and execute it without anyone feeling alienated, and I'm going to try that on this next campaign. So there you saw three types of ads. The webinar is getting close to an hour. I can't believe how quickly the time goes. But here's a example, Eric, I wanted to show you with social media. On Instagram, 5,000 views over here, 5,000 views, 5,000 views, 4,000 views. This is before I even launched the game. The game wasn't launched, and I was getting these kind of views on this. So again, my game's fun. It's easy. It's a very easy one-player game. That's what's also very cool about my game. It's easy to demonstrate one player. But this type of viral activity before the game launched, or felt to me like I was onto something good. This video on TikTok, literally, so this was my fourth video, and it had 14,000 views. I couldn't believe it. Like I had just launched. Look, first Kickstarter, first TikTok video, second, third, and fourth. 14,000. It's a little blurry there, but it was 14.7 thousand.
How much? How prior? How much earlier that from your actual campaign launch? Where did you begin launching these videos?
That's a good question. Because I was doing a lot within 6 months prior. So I'm not sure where exactly this lies, but I started like 6 months prior. I really started pouring it on. Like I was on a lot, but about that far out. So it wasn't like I was waiting, 2 months or a month before. I was pretty far out, doing this. And then this video ended up going viral. At that point, it was over 700,000 views. And one thing on TikTok, short videos and funny videos. This is short and funny. The guy misses the shot like 12 times and he's right there. Um, they do well. There's no doubt that if it's short, under a minute, and funny, they tend to get more views than longer form videos. So TikTok, a necessity. And we're getting close to wrapping up, but this video on crowd surfing with Tom Vassell had 18,000 views on May 4th. My campaign ended May 12th. From right after that video, we had like 90 pledges. Like that's that hockey stick, like they call it, that spike going up that I showed you at the beginning. So we had a lot of great reviews though too. So this game looks fun. We had one guy said it was like no other golf games need to be made. Sorry, no offense, Glenn, but he said no other golf games need to be made. No, but
I've
it might
since
have
been
been.
in contact with that guy, and I'm going to meet him at the UK Games Expo and see what he says. But
Tell him I say hello. Tell him I say hello.
I
He's
know the
great.
guy. It's the board game bollocks guy, right?
Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, So this part is gold, gold, gold. You have to have a fully polished game, 99.9% done when you send it to reviewers. And if you could get this kind of stuff during the campaign, it's going to put more fuel on the fire. But definitely you need reviews on your actual campaign page, right? On that Kickstarter page, if you could have 3 or 4 solid reviews, especially as a new board game designer, it's very, very, very important. So I'm gonna kind of, this is another thing that social media does. People started to comment, "Hi guys, love what you're doing. As a golfer and gamer, this fits right in my wheelhouse. How do I buy one of these sets? I want to play so bad. It looks so fun." I wanted this game from the get-go. More you post, the more I want it. So what's cool about social media is you could start grabbing these comments, right, and using them in other posts. And then I also use it on my Kickstarter page. The landing page strategy, I do have some, these are exactly what I did for the VIP page. So you could see exactly how that works and you can kind of go into it a little bit further. But it did work. I mean, we had a lot of, like you saw, 900 people visited the page, 400 converted, and another 200 pledged. And then this is the little thank you that they would get. Congrats, you're a VIP member. And really all they were doing was leaving $1 to secure a discount of the game. Actually, the discount was $15. So whoever pledged on day one only had to pay $60 for a $75 game. So it was a very strong incentive. It was stronger than I should have done it. It was a little bit deeper into my pocket than I needed to go into. But obviously, it was a windfall as far as how many people pledged on day one. You saw we had 10,000 in the first hour. We had $36,000 in the first day. So it worked, but I do think there's a better way to do it now to execute this because I don't want to get into the logistics, but Kickstarter doesn't let you give a discount. So how about that? So I ran into quite a conundrum, if you will, on how to execute this, which was unfortunately not explained to me when I got into this. But now I know how to do this, and I obviously that's what I help my clients with. But offering a discounted price to a Kickstarter, I do believe in, and I do believe in thanking people that pledge on day one. But there's a better way to do it than with the VIP program. I love this too. My video was watched 14,318 times. So the video at the top of the page, guys, is another place where you need to invest some time and probably some money. It needs to be decent. It needs to be up on the par of, well done, at least. You could do things nowadays that are really just with an iPhone. You really can, but it still needs to be well done and well thought out. And it was a huge part of getting people to like engage with my page. So that was that's a little screenshot of the results of the video. I built all of these graphics in Canva. So, you can kind of just copy that. And stretch goals, we did have, I think 6 of them were unlocked. And the way I did stretch goals was a little different. Most people do it based on dollars. I did it on number of backers. So in order to unleash the next stretch goal, we had to reach a certain number of backers. There's pros and cons to both, but in my coaching, I recommend you use dollars. Dollars is a better way to do stretch goals because if somebody pledges at $40 and they're getting close to a stretch goal, they may change their pledge from 40 to 70, right? They may up their pledge and actually help you reach that stretch goal. Where if you base it just on backers, they can't do anything. They already backed it, right? So they can't do anything to help increase, the campaign. So it's a better strategy to base it on dollars overall. And we did that the second time. This was just something really cool. Like this ball didn't exist. We didn't even have this when we launched. And it was the only piece in the game that wasn't custom was the ball. And I said, you know what? We have to do it. And I went to Fiverr. I found the guy. He actually gave me the 3D CAD design for a very great price. And we ended up just saying, what the heck, let's go for it. And this ball was one of the most purchased add-ons for $5 of everything in the game. I mean, everybody added on this thing. It was crazy. It was really, really good. I think we're at the end of this. Yeah. So at the end of this PDF, also, Eric, there's a Kickstarter preparedness. It's kind of like a cool little checklist of everything we explain here. And I do want to, it is short on time, but I'll leave it open for a couple of questions if you guys want to, touch on anything there near the end.
I
Or
just want
ask
to say I
about anything.
appreciate what you provided us. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. And I really do appreciate you guys, being part of this, allowing me to record it so that we can share it. As a one-on-one Kickstarter coach, obviously there's so much here, right? I didn't stop talking for an hour. I barely kind of scraped the surface of everything. We just really touched the surface of it. The execution, there's a lot more to it. But listen, I'm not trying to scare anybody away or trying to push anyone to hire me. The point is, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work, and having a great game is just a small part of it. having a great game is super important, but it's just a small. There's a lot of great games that never got funded. There's a lot of great games that never saw the light of day, and it's because this part of the work wasn't done. So that's my speech. Thank you guys for joining again. I'll let you guys know when I post it, so you can always watch it again. And as of course as a client, Glenn, we schedule calls one on one. But Eric or anyone else listening to the call, you can go to kickstartercoach.com and schedule. We still offer a 1 hour free Kickstarter preparedness call, so we can look at your campaign, see where you're at. You get my honest opinion on whether I believe you're prepared or not, or where you should be focusing on, and that's complimentary right now. And then we'll take it from there. So thanks again. I appreciate everybody. And
John, can I just add? Like,
sure.
I've done that 1 hour Kickstarter preparedness call, and we had a really great chat, and everything you said in there was super honest, super down the line, and yeah, it really was worth, and it's a free one. So yeah, everyone should definitely take advantage of the free one. If I can't recommend it enough, like worth it.
Thank you, Glenn. Yeah, I mean, and I didn't mention, like we spoke about, I help with manufacturing, with fulfillment, with, there's all the logistics side of it, right? That we didn't really, discuss as part of the Kickstarter coaching. But, I do wish that I had an opportunity to speak to a Kickstarter coach in the beginning. Like what I was a part of was a group thing, and they spent 5 minutes talking about my thing and my game. And it really wasn't the kind of thing you need when you first start. So thank you, Glenn. I do appreciate that, and I look forward to working with you. And again, anyone else that's watching this webinar and wants to take the next step, kickstartercoach.com, and schedule that free preparedness call here. Thanks again. Have a great day, and goodbye.
John, could I
Yep.
chat
Yeah, I
to
just wanted to stop
Eric
recording.
and
Yep.
find is it possible to